So I'm 28 years old, and I am very tired of being single. After being fixed up on a blind date with the same guy twice, I've decided that I have dated every single man in the Upper West Side. And I surprisingly, though, still believe in the romantic chance encounter. So when my boss tells me that it's time for us to do a sales presentation and we need pictures of typical American families, I decide instead of going to a stock photo house, which is what you used to do in the 90s, I'm going to borrow a fancy camera and I'm going to go into Central Park. And so I learn how to use, I borrow a camera from a friend of mine. I learn how to use this big thing. I learn how to load the film and spool it on there. And I walk from my apartment into the park on 72nd Street on the Park Drive. And I'm literally not there more than 5 minutes when out of the corner I hear a guy say, "Hey, take my picture." And I turn, and there's a kind of cute guy with a full, thick head of hair and cool sunglasses, and he's wearing rollerblades, and it's the 90s, so that's not weird. And he says, "Take my picture," and I'm like, well, he's not exactly a typical American family, but this is my personal rom-com, and so this is the perfect beginning. And I say, "Sure, I'll take your picture." And he goes, "Take it with my friends too." And so they all cluster together, and I'm about to take the photograph. And out of the back of the cluster, I hear a voice, and this woman goes, Debbie Halpern?" And I look, and it's this woman, Jackie, who I'd been on a trip like 8 years earlier to Europe with. And we chit-chat, and it's one of those normal chance encounters. And she's like, "Hey, we're all going to watch the US Open on the Upper West Side in a bar. Why don't you join us?" And I'm like, "Of course." And so I do, and I join them. And I'm sitting at the bar with this guy who was on the rollerblades, who's now in shoes. And we chat, and he's like, "Hey," and we talk, and I find out his name is Alan Tenenbaum, and he's a lawyer. And we have a nice time, and he doesn't take my number, but he hands me his business card, and he says, "Hey, when those pictures get developed, why don't you send them to me?" Of course, perfect, right? So I go back to my apartment, I go to get the photos developed. It takes a couple of days back then. And it's Thursday, that was on a Sunday, it's Thursday, and I look for his business card, and I can't find it anywhere. I look everywhere. I've cleaned my apartment up and down 10 times. I've emptied every pocket. Everything has been searched. I have nothing. I try to find Jackie, but I can't figure out how to get in touch with her either. Remember, the word internet didn't exist, maybe for Al Gore. And I go to find this number, and I can't figure it out. So I decide I'm going to use the technology we have available at the time, and I go to the white pages. And I look up Alan Tenenbaum, but I can't find his name. But I can find the name Alan Tenenberg, and I think, maybe I just remembered the name wrong. So I dial the number next to Alan Tenenberg's name, and he says, the phone rings, and a guy picks up the phone, and I'm like, "Alan?" And is Alan there? And he says, "This is Alan." And I say, "Hi, this is Debbie. We met in the park on Sunday." And he's like, "Yeah, I was in the park on Sunday." And I said, you were wearing rollerblades?" And he's like, "I was biking." And I said, "You're a lawyer?" And he's like, "No, but I'm a doctor." So we proceed to talk for 45 minutes. And it turns out that we actually know somebody in common. He's the resident at Mount Sinai, and I happen to know the chief resident at Mount Sinai. But it gets close to 9 o'clock, and he says, "I really got to go. Cheers is on." So we hang up, and I think it's over at that point. But 2 days later, my phone rings, and it's Alan Tenenberg, and he's like, "I checked you out with our mutual friend, and do you want to go on a date?" And I'm like, what a fantastic rom-com opening to the even better. And I'm like, "Yes, absolutely." And we go on a date. We meet at a restaurant on the Upper West Side, and he's not exactly my type. He's sort of cute, but he's like a little more religious. Like, he's wearing a yarmulke, which is no big deal, but a little more religious than I would want. And he's a little full of himself. I mean, I have to say this, but I'm really in this movie, and I'm thinking, this is it. He's my husband. So when he asks me out on a second date, we go on the second date, and it doesn't work out. And actually, 6 months later, on a normal blind date, I meet the man that I will be married to for the next 23-ish years or so, counting. But that's actually ending or over. And so I'm single again. And I went onto Facebook to try and find Alan Tenenbaum, and I couldn't find him. But Alan Tenenberg is right there on Facebook with his bicycle, and he's in pictures in Israel with Newt Gingrich and Chuck Norris, and so I sort of feel like I made the okay decision, right? Right. And most of my friends want me to start going on those dating apps, and like I just can't get myself to do the swiping thing, and I'm scared of it. But I think I've got the white pages, so I'm going to be fine. Thank you.
Over there, what's your real name? Michael. Michael, what's your goddamn problem? Yeah? So wait, you don't use your own name, Michael, the perfect name for Starbucks? Like really, if Starbucks could be renamed, it would be renamed Michael. Actually, but they can't because there's a store called Michael's that sells crafts. But what is your coffee name? Ulysses. Oh, okay, I get it. Right. See, this happens too. There are people who have grown up with boring names. And then they get into Starbucks and they want to be like the rest of us who have had to deal with a really weird name that no one's ever understood or said properly. And so they go for an aspirational name. I like the aspirational name.
Well, I appreciate that, but that's not why I did it.
Okay. Well, I think we're going to end the story there, though. No, I want to know.
To be continued.
No, why? Why?
Sure.
Why?
Because I'm me. I want to see how they spell it.
Oh, you just want to see how they spell it. Wow. Not good, man. We should have ended it. You know what? I had an instinct, and then I thought, no, I'm not being fair to this guy. That is totally something a Michael would do. I'm not gonna lie. Okay. But that's good. All right, good.